Okay, let's jump into this week's DXP Report newsletter. What are the three highlights we want to start with? Why don't you go ahead and take us away?
Yeah, so first highlight we're going to start with is the Pledge 1% initiative. So we featured two stories this week regarding it. Kontent.ai, they committed equity to fund future CSR initiatives, CSR being Kontent.ai Cares Corporate Social Responsibility Program. And they're doing that through the 1% pledge. Also, we featured Contentful. They joined the Pledge 1% movement and are also committing some equity. So I'm just wondering what the Pledge 1% is. So Pledge 1%, they're really a global movement. It's meant to inspire, educate, and empower companies to leverage their financial assets for positive social impact. So it's basically encouraging companies to donate 1% of something, whether that be their time, their profit, or equity, which seems to be what a lot of the members do, and that's what Kontent.ai and Contentful are both doing in this case. Kontent.ai, so they've been actually working with Pledge 1% since 2018, sorry, and their fund, the Kontent.ai Cares Fund, is through a dedicated foundation, so they're basically pledging equity to fund future initiatives in that foundation. And then Contentful, they recently joined it, like they just joined it. They made the announcement, and they've now created a fund, the Contentful Fund, which is managed by the Tides Foundation and is supposed to support charitable initiatives as well. So it's really just about getting corporate companies to give some money back to the charitable donations.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, you delved into this more than I did, and originally I was like, it seemed very vague, but yeah, now that I'm reading into it more and listening to you more, I understand the benefits here. You know, charity is always good, so this seems like a good initiative. So yeah, kudos to them. Let's move on to BCMS, right? So these guys, I hadn't come across them before. Is it bcms.com or is it bcms.com is their URL?
Yeah, the BCMS.
No, it's not. Yeah, the BCMS. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, the BCMS. And just make sure I'm in the right place. I want to describe the homepage. It's important to me. So the homepage gives you, and this is something I've been talking to headless CMS players for years about, which is like making their demos just like more accessible, right? So whether that's for like YouTube videos or like showing, oh, you know, here's how you use our CMS to build a landing page or to integrate with such and such. That's good, and a lot of players are doing that, which is good. But BCMS on their homepage, if you go to it, you can actually use their backend right on the homepage. Just scroll down and it's there, and you can edit the homepage that you're on like live, right? I've seen this done before on like other page builders and stuff. It's not like groundbreaking in terms of the technology necessarily, but for a headless CMS, I think it is groundbreaking because I haven't seen this done before. And this is the kind of thing that speaks volumes to marketers, CMOs, their teams who are like looking into a product. What a fantastic way to reel them in, right? It's like, oh, okay, I've scrolled down. The first scroll is literally me using the platform right away, rather than waiting for a demo and then we schedule, a second meetup and then we'll give you a sandbox. And no, you can do it straight away. The only thing I'd say is, maybe they could give developers something as interactive as that, something to sort of bite into type of thing. But to be honest with you, that it's free to download. No, not free to download. It's free to download.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Open source, sure.
Yeah. So yeah, you get started for free. So yeah, to be fair, it's just not just as easy, but extremely easy for developers to just jump in, get started, start tinkering with it. So yeah, an interesting CMS that I hadn't heard of before, but they've got some big clients. Who have they got?
Yeah, so I'm not exactly sure, but so on their homepage, they do list some big names like Coca-Cola, NASA, Netflix, HBO. So I'm not exactly sure. Seems like we're big players. I'm not exactly sure, especially because it doesn't necessarily line up with their target audience, which seems to be like
NASA. I mean, the thing is, right, with these big companies, I know where you're coming from. NASA and Coca-Cola, like these CMS guys, like I understand where you're coming from, But usually what happens in these situations, I'm not saying that definitely is true, nor is it, I'm not saying it's definitely not true, but sometimes it'll be like a small team within NASA who are just building like their events page, right? It's just a NASA event. It sounds like, Elon Musk's contemporary has like chosen this as like the one platform to use. But usually it's like a subset of NASA or like a small branch, like, their annual events team, right? And they use this to build a landing page. So it could be like that. It could be in that sense. That does make a lot of sense to me if it was like that, because these massive companies have those sort of smaller teams who are just sort of looking for small tools to use for like very small projects. I don't know how often I'm going to say the word small, but that's pretty much it. So I'm it seems a little bit far-fetched, but I can see I'll make excuses for them. I think it could be the case. When did they launch?
So they started in 2019, actually, so roughly 4 years ago now. It's a team from Serbia, and they're very developer focused, but they're very, very niche, which I think is really interesting. Like, I know in the last 4 weeks we've covered a few CMSs that have been catering to developers. So like their target audience is really like freelance developers and agencies and their clients. So basically, if you have an agency and like the client says they need a CMS, if they use BCMS, and then they set up everything like the website using BCMS, and then the editors on whoever is working in that company, they can go in and edit just like what we did on the homepage there. And then it's easier for the developers to handle. So I think they have their niche, and they seem to be really doing really well with that specific niche. And it's gonna be interesting to see if they decide they want to branch out, do something else. But I think they'll probably continue to cater to those smaller companies, small scale projects and stuff like that. It seems to be working for them.
Yeah, I'm just checking them out on our SEO tool, ahrefs.com, and their organic traffic is extremely low. Not ranking for that many keywords, but some, and their most sort of their top 5 sort of pages outside of just like their homepage is their Webflow price comparison, or like basically a blog post attacking Webflow's pricing. Why is Webflow too expensive? So yeah, this does cast more doubt on NASA using them, to be honest. I'm just not sure like they've got the sort of brand awareness, but yeah, if only there was some sort of company that could help them create content to rank and get NASA as a client. But anyway, why don't we move on to our third story?
Yeah, so third story is this very interesting thread on Reddit, headless CMS recommendations. And it's very developer focused. There's a lot of people weighing in. And basically the initial commenter is he's trying to figure out which headless CMS is trying to work with if his company wants to move off of WordPress. And he's gone through and just like presenting a few CMSs that he's tried, probably not the complete list, and basically focus on a lot of the problems he's had with them, and if any other developers out there can solve them. But I think what's most interesting about this is mentions the complexity of working with some headless platforms right now, and even how expensive some of them can be. But I'm guessing that's relative. The thought of expense is relative, because this could be a very small company that's just ready to move off of WordPress, whereas we know a lot of headless CMSs that we cover in the DXP Report. It's really enterprise level companies who cost matters, but it's maybe not like the final determining factor for them.
Yeah, this was a really, really interesting post for me, like the Reddit post, and all the answers. There's like almost 70 comments, I think, at the time of saying that. No, sorry, over 108 comments. So this is very much alive right now. I've only read about 50 comments so far, so I want to read the rest. But this gave me really interesting insight into like the developers who are like using these platforms on a day-to-day basis. Us doing what we do, if we put on our Wordify hats for a minute, we help a lot of these companies with their content, right? We help these headless CMSs build out blog content, landing pages, that kind of thing. So we hear often a lot from their team, usually their sort of marketing team or their, maybe their product team and the CEO, and we hear a very like business centric view of their platform, right?
Yeah.
And we do dig into like what the weakness is, right? We always dig into that. What are the areas that we probably shouldn't push too much because we're weak on that area. So we do get to find that stuff out. But all of our clients have this problem internally, which is getting the sort of the CTO and his or her team, those developers who are sort of in the sort of thick of it, to get their heads out of that and give like the marketing team a real on the ground update of like, okay, here's what we're working on, here's what's going well, here's what's going right. Our customers love this, our customers hate this about the platform, because they're just so busy, like, tinkering and trying to improve, entertaining GraphQL too much and pushing them towards Grok. And that turned him off, right? And again, you mentioned pricing is another thing. Yeah, just like lots of really sort of nitty gritty issues that a dev may have. Things like, not just devs, but things like localization, personalization, content revisions are also in here. The use of databases or lack thereof all plays a part in these devs sort of decision making. And it just gives you a really good feel of the landscape from a dev's perspective, which we get a limited view of, to be honest, quite frankly. So I do recommend that anybody listening goes and checks this out. Go to dxpreport.com. The last newsletter, it's on the bottom. Word on the street, in the word on the street category, and it's one of the Reddit posts there, headless CMS recommendations. Really interesting. Yeah. Andres, anything else?
Yeah, there was actually one comment, I think it was pretty early on in that actual thread, and it's basically something we've been talking about a little bit also, was the fact that WordPress is still the dominant thing on the internet. Yeah. Like, it's still gonna be the dominant thing. And headless platforms are only now starting to like claw that market share from WordPress. So, and it did say that like a lot of these things, they're like, these could be a personal preference thing based on like how the developer likes working and things like that. So it's really just interesting. It's just, I think as fast as the industry is continuing to move, we're still probably still in the early stages of headless and like what headless can become and will become probably for a lot of companies. So I think that's something that we need to take note of as well. Yeah,
and there was some good arguments again against using WordPress for like, anything where security is a concern. WordPress saves everything in HTML rather than JSON, so there's some sort of relatively fundamental security issues with that, and which is no surprise for anybody dealing with WordPress in the past. But yeah, just really, really, really interesting this post. I'm definitely going to give it another read and just read this stuff I haven't read yet. Okay, excellent. I think we're good for time. Thanks again for your time, Andres, and we'll speak again next week.
Sounds good. See you next week, guys.